Hello friends! It is unbelievably hot. So I'm in a very kind of dark room. Sorry for the glare, I'm facing a window so you can at least see me a little bit. But I put the blinds down a little bit so it's a little bit darker too. I do apologize. But it is hot and I don't want to do anything outside and I don't want to bake and I don't want to do anything. So we're going to talk about books because books are great. And I wanted to share some books that I've read this summer, and we're going to keep to 5 books because 5 is a pretty number and 5 is a great number. Before we get started, make sure you guys subscribe so you can go ahead and join me on all of this book content, but also cozy content that I create. I love making cozy, comfy videos to share with you guys so we can be cozy, comfy together and talk about books. So that's kind of fun. But let's get to the video. We are here for a video. Let's talk about 5 books that I think I just want to talk about. These aren't the only 5 books I've read. These are just 5 books that are on this bookshelf. And we're going to find them and we're going to talk about them. So let's go ahead and start. This one's right next to my head. It's Real Americans by Rachel Kwong. This is part of 12 books I'm reading for 2024 that were published in 2024. I was really excited for this. I was really interested in the story. It's about first generation American. Her parents are originally from China and moved to the US, and they wanted her daughter to be full American. So Lily, our main character, the first part of this novel, she is encouraged by her parents to only speak English so she doesn't learn her parents' mother tongue. And she's encouraged to have American friends, do all the American things, and her life ends up being quite mundane at the very beginning of this novel. And that's one of the reasons actually I was quite interested in it, because I was interested in like why or where this novel was going to go with such a mundane idea. And so I got pulled in really quickly and I really wanted to know what was happening. And the story is actually split into 3 parts. So we have the daughter, Lily, then her mother's kind of story, and then we have the son's story. And the mother and the daughter story I really, really enjoyed. I fell in love with these 2 stories. I think they're absolutely well written, engrossing, and just breathtakingly written. And I was just awestruck by not just Lily's story, but her mother's story. And I think her mother's story was really moving. And I actually learned quite a bit about China and some terrible things that happened in China and why a lot of people fled China back in the day. And so it was really intriguing and eye-opening in certain aspects. The son's perspective, though, I just hated. I really disliked the son's perspective, which is unfortunate, but that's my opinion. I just did not connect with his character, and I think because I found him whiny at points, and I kind of wanted him to like suck it up and realize like his life is not the most important thing in the world, and he should care about the other people around him, and he does. It reminded me of an irritating teenager, and I think I just got irritated with his irritating teenagerness that he made me frustrated in the parts where he was talking and interacting. So that's why I love the story, and also I'm struggling a little bit with it because I really do love certain parts of this story. There's one quote, I've marked a couple pieces in this and I always forget what the quotes are, but I read this one before I started talking about it, so I cheated a little bit. This one is, "I love Paris," I said over emphatically. "I felt my cheeks redden the moment the words left my mouth. I often wondered what percentage of the things I said were truly original, and how much of what I said I've heard said before and was only repeating." It's one of those moments where I'm thinking, yeah, I repeat a lot of what I hear, and we all do. I mean, especially when you're on BookTube or BookTok or any of these social medias, you see something, you say something, you repeat something. It happens so often to all of us. And I was just kind of, when I read that quote, I was like, wow, yeah, I agree. I haven't said I love Paris, but I wouldn't be surprised when I see Paris. I'd be like, oh, I love Paris. So I really enjoyed it, but I also found it frustrating at times. It took me longer to read because there were parts of the novel that I was just feeling very frustrated about, and it kind of dragged for me. But I think this could be a really good read for a lot of people. If you like the idea of this historical fiction based in also current life, based on relationships with families and how relationships are built and how we interact with our children, but also our parents, I think you would really like this. And the fact that it's about a Chinese family coming to, or a Chinese couple coming to the US and starting their life, and we kind of followed that idea also, it was really intriguing and I find it really lovely. I don't love everything about it, but that's completely okay. And if you like those types of stories, maybe you really love this. And maybe you're used to the irritating teenagerness, and I was not. I recommend it for anybody who loves those stories where you're following life and relationships with family. So, Real Americans by Rachel Kwong. Oh, and I'll go ahead and, I can't remember exactly when I read all these, but I'll go ahead and list the dates up here so that way you know when I read them. I think I read this one in July, I think. What else have I read this summer? Ooh, this one might be one that a lot of you have not heard of. It's called East of the Mountains by David Gutterson. This was a recommendation from my partner. He actually wants to read another novel from this author, and he was like, hey, this is based in your home state. Maybe you would really like it. And I was like, ooh, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure if this is going to be a novel for me. I loved it. I gave it a 5-star. I thought this was breathtaking. It's about an old man who has lost his wife, and he's just kind of done. He's done with life. He's okay with it ending. He's just kind of waiting for it to end. And we find out some other things about the character, but he's just kind of okay with it coming to the end, which we find out at the very beginning of the book. So don't worry, I'm not spoiling you. But Ben, our main character, he lives in Washington State, and he is currently residing in Seattle, Washington, or on the Seattle side. We don't know exactly where. He might be on the peninsula, actually. But he decides to go on a hunting trip, and during that hunting trip, a lot of things end up happening. And this story only takes place over a couple days, I think like 5 or 6 days. Don't quote me on that. And we kind of follow the story of his adventure in taking this moment of going out and planning on ending his life. And we get these flashbacks to his past and his meeting of his wife, his meeting of these friends, his adventures, his problems, his just everything. So it ends up being a story in my life type of book, but so interestingly written and so fascinating that you end up getting pulled into his story very quickly. And I would imagine like sitting down with my grandfather or my dad and them telling me the story, and I'm just lost in every word. It was so beautiful, so wonderful, and I was flabbergasted. I couldn't believe how much I loved this novel, and there's a part of me that wonders if it's because it's based in Washington State and my heart pulls to Washington State all the time, and I miss those areas so much. But it's east of the mountains, so it's not even taking place in the areas I grew up. It's taking place on the other side of the mountains, and it's just so beautiful and so raw and so heavy, and so it's just wonderful. And so if you're looking for story of my life, raw feeling, and following this man's journey of trying to come to an end, it's truly fascinating, and I highly recommend it. I don't really have much more to say about this book because I don't want to give away too much. It is very intriguing, and I can't recommend it enough. It was perfect for the summer. It does take place during fall, so it was moving into the fall season, but it still worked really well for the summer, and it made me miss home a lot, but it was really fascinating, and I'm looking forward to reading other novels by this author. So David Gutterson is definitely an author I would buy without even thinking about it. He's also written a murder mystery that takes place in Washington. Where the Snow Falls or something like that. I don't remember the name of the book. We actually recently bought it. I think it's in our murder mysteries, which would be right here. David Gutterson, Snow Falling on Cedars. So this is the other novel by him. I haven't read this one, but it's supposed to be like a murder mystery. Super interested in this one. I think I'm gonna read it during this winter because it's snowy and a beautiful cover too, but also very interested in reading this one. What is the next book we should talk about? Sometimes when I'm gonna talk about this one. Sometimes when I'm looking at all of the books on the bookshelf, I can't remember which ones I've read. I don't know if you feel that way too. That's why I have a bullet journal that keeps track of the books I read. Because sometimes I'm looking at it, I'm like, did I read that this year? Did I even read it? Like, where did you go, Bernadette? I can't remember if I've read this book, but I'm sure if I picked it up, I would remember if I had or not. But I don't know. I can't remember because I must have read it a while ago if I had read it. Anyway, we're gonna move to A Pirate's Life for Tea by Rebecca Thorne. I ended up not finishing this one, but not because I don't like it. And that's the complicated part of this one. I have never soft DNF'd a book because I just didn't really understand it. Not because it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, you either DNF or you don't DNF. It's just because either I've liked a book and I finished it or I didn't like a book and I stopped it. This was one of those books where I was reading it and I just wasn't getting into it. And I really liked the story it was going into, but there were a few problems I had. So this is book technically number 2 of a series. But at the very beginning of this book, it says, hey, you don't have to read the first one to understand this one. However, I think that's actually incorrect. There are some characters that I think are really important for you to know. And if you don't know their backstory from the first book, then it's really, really hard to connect to the characters in this book. I didn't realize this was a second book. I just really liked the title, so that's why I ended up buying it. And now I know that this is the second of, I think, 3 books, but this is the second book. And so I started reading it. I'm about 103 pages in, and I liked the story, I liked where it was going, it's just I wasn't getting into it. And it's this cozy pirate book about tea, and they're searching for a pirate that's stealing wheat and tea from different towns, and they're on the hunt for them. It's a lesbian couple who are super cute together. One's a mage, and one's I think she's a bodyguard or like a fighter. And so we have this very interesting relationship between these two, but we learned about that relationship in the first book. And I don't know anything about that relationship, so I feel like I'm missing a lot. So I'm not connected to the characters, I'm not connected to the story. So I've said, I'm not going to continue with this one, not because I'm not liking it, but just because I can't connect with it. Also, it's this very cozy feeling book, and I'm not feeling cozy right now. I'm actually feeling a lot of other types of books, and the cozy is not one of them. And I think it's because of the summer weather. I'm just like, it's too hot. I can't do cozy. I want to be comfy and cozy with a fall scented candle, and it being all like dark and gloomy, even though this is not a dark and gloomy book, but you know what I mean. So, A Pirate's Life for Tea, it's super cute so far, but I've had to stop it. If you've read the first one, let me know what you thought, because I'm wanting to buy the first one, but I have reservations, of course, because I want to really like it to be able to move forward with the second one. So those are my problems, but soft DNF'd because I've learned I'm a mood reader and I'm just not in the mood for it, and I want to get to know the characters. So that's what's happened with this one. So I technically haven't finished that one, but I'm going to count that. One that I have read, which is one of the reasons why I realized I'm not in the cozy mood, is Rouge by Mona Awad. I just finished this one a couple weeks ago, and if you haven't read anything from Mona Awad, it's hard to explain Mona Awad. I read Bunny, which was her first novel I read of hers. And Bunny is one of those books where you're just like, I'm a little crazy. Rouge makes you feel the same way. So I really love Bunny. Bunny is a 5 out of 5 book for me. Rouge did not end up getting to that level. I think it was really fascinating. I really liked the idea of Rouge. It's about a woman. All of the books I read are about women, except for East of the Mountains, which is funny because my partner, Michelle, recommended that book to me, and it's a male main character. I need to read more male main character books. So if you have recommendations, I'm going to be accepting them now. Okay, we're talking about Rouge. So Rouge by Mona Awad is about a young woman who, and not young, she's actually in her 30s, which I thought was pretty cool. Which is still young. I'm in my 30s. I'm young. And she just lost her mother. She goes to the house to kind of deal with the grieving process and also deal with funeral and everything like that. And while she's there, she ends up meeting some people who are very interested in skincare, which she's also very, lack of a better term, a bit obsessed. She's a bit obsessed with skincare, making herself look young, making herself look perfect. It made me feel very weird about like my skincare routine, which is very minimal. It's I put some lotion on my face, I have my night cream, my morning cream. This is like 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the evening doing creaming. So it was a lot. So we follow her relationship with these people that she ends up meeting who are also a bit obsessed with their skincare, and she kind of gets involved with a cult. Sounds a little bit like Bunny, right? And it ends up just being very drug-inducing and confusing. And for lack of a better way of even explaining this book, it's just an odd story. And if you think skincare routines are a bit weird or a bit obsessive sometimes, or if you're just looking for a funky novel, I think that you would enjoy this. If you liked Bunny, you may not love it as much, but you might enjoy kind of like the weirdness of Mona Awad and Mona Awad's writing. I think the story was definitely fascinating. I do think there's some holes that I didn't pick up as much, and I'm wondering if it's because I have to read it a second time to actually understand all the little tiny things. But for the most part, I liked it. It's a fun, creepy little novel. Not little, it's 400 pages. But I liked it. I enjoyed reading it, and that's why I'm kind of not in the cozy mood, is because I read this, and went directly to A Pirate's Life for Tea. It didn't work. So that's why I had to also say, hey, I'm not going to finish A Pirate's Life for Tea because I just finished this and I'm not in the right mindset. So this was also very delightful. What else do we got? We need one more good book to make it an even 5. It doesn't have to even be a good book. It just has to be a book to make an even 5. I've already talked about the pachinko parlor, I believe. I think I did. I think I talked about it in my mid-year what is it called? My mid-year freak out. I also had struggling with words. It's the heat. I think I talked about the pachinko parlor during that video. I think so. But I might end up talking about that one because I can't think of another book I've read. Oh, I have one. I know I talked about this one actually during my mid-year freakout book tag video, but I really love this book and I highly recommend it, and I think it was so delightful, so amazing, and I'm going to recommend it again. I am also going to recommend the Pachinko Parlor because I thought that was actually quite interesting. It's another slice of life novel. Sorry, I've added an extra one in here, but I'm going to do this one quick. Slice of life novel, very interesting, very short, so it's a really quick read. I think I read it in 2 days, and it just talks about the Pachinko Parlor and a young woman who ends up visiting her parents in Japan who own a Pachinko Parlor, and she's trying to encourage them to go back to their home country, which is Korea. And it was definitely very intriguing. Not my favorite book, but I really did like it, and I would recommend it if you like slice of life novels. All That's Left in the World by Eric Brown. This is so amazingly cute and adorable, and I loved it, and I ate it up. And the characters in this book were just so cute. It's Andrew and Jamie, and I really recommend this if you love romance. I don't read romance very often, and I thought this was a great romance. It's apocalypse or post-apocalyptic book about these two boys who end up meeting, or two men, two boys, whatever you want to call them. And they end up meeting kind of happenstancely. It's not a word. I'm making it into a word. The heat's getting to me. So they meet by happenstance, and they end up kind of traveling through this post-apocalypse eastern part of the US, and it's just really delightful, really intriguing. I've used that word a couple times, but it is. And I just really fell in love with the characters. I think it's really well written. It's just an easy, comfortable read, perfect for summer. I just laid on the sofa and ate this story up. And there's a second one, and I'm really, really looking forward to reading the second one. And again, I'm not a romance reader, so I think if you like light romances about two characters who learn how to communicate well or do communicate well, then I think you'll like this. And that's one of the reasons why I really liked it, is because the characters actually communicate and talk to each other. And I like that. So All That's Left in the World, I've already talked about it quite a bit in my other videos, so I'm not going to go too far into it. But if you want to know more, you can check that out. Put it in the description or the eye, wherever you want to look. And very delightful. Lovely, lovely novel. And those are my 5 books. Where did I get this? Oh, those are my 5 books. I highly not recommend, because this isn't a recommendation video. This is just 5 books I've read this summer that I have found interesting, or that I have just wanted to share. I read quite a bit on my own, and I love sharing my books with you guys, because sometimes it's nice to hear about how somebody else is reading or what somebody else is reading, so you can get some new ideas, some new insights, and maybe some new recommendations, like David Gunderson, because I don't think a lot of people have heard about him, but I highly recommend his writing. And yeah, so I think those are the 5 books I want to talk about. But I want to talk about 2 more, because these are the 2 I'm currently reading, and I just want to talk about them. And if you're reading them, maybe you can talk to me about them, because we can start a little book club maybe. And those 2 books are Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I've never read a Brandon Sanderson book, so this is my first one. I'm only about 70 pages into it, and I'm enjoying it. It's cute. And she bakes pies, which I'm a pie baker, and she has a collection of cups, which I have a collection of cups, so I thought that was really cute, and I'm connecting very well with her. The other one I'm reading is Table for Two by Immortals. This is a collection of short stories, kind of. The first, I think, 6 stories are short stories, about 30 to 40 pages long. Some of them are a little bit longer. And then the last one is 200 pages long, so it's like a book. And I've really loved this. I've finished the first 4 stories. The 4th one frustrated me because of its a lack of communication between 2 people, but that's another story. But the other stories have just been so amazing. I've really loved them. The first one is about a wife and husband who lives in Russia during 1918, I believe. And it's just about their mundane life, slice of life. If you haven't gotten the drift, I read a lot of those. And the second novel, or the second story, is about an airport, I think. Oh, no, it's about a bookstore. So that one's about a bookstore and some happenings that happen at a bookstore. I'm not going to go into detail because that's part of the story. The third one is about, unfortunately, a man who runs into a very charismatic man at an airport. Again, not going to go too far into the story because it's a slice of life, so the story kind of, you have to, if I say anything, it's going to give it away. So those are the first 3 stories. I enjoyed all 3 of them. I still also enjoyed the 4th one. It was just the communication, lack of communication between 2 people that frustrated me. So I'm 4 stories into this, and I'm really loving it. If you like short stories, I highly, highly recommend it. This is also another one of the books for my 12 books of 2024, and I really do find this so fascinating and so amazingly written. I just can't believe how amazing this is written. And this is also really well written, and I'm enjoying it. But I take breaks between my short stories when I get frustrated and read a little bit of this. So I'm done. I have 5 books that I've read so far this summer. There's a couple other ones in there, but I'm not going to go into more. 5 is good. We all like 5. 5 is a pretty number. I recommended another one that if you like slice of life, and then I have also my 2 books that I'm currently reading. So I'm sorry, there was a lot of books in this one, but you clicked on a book video, so that's bound to happen, right? All right, I've spoken enough, but I would love to hear about the books that you've read, what you've liked, if you've softy DNF'd anything ever. If you have you ever gone back to the book, or why have you softy DNF'd it? That's actually really fascinating to me. Or what are you currently reading? Maybe we can start a book club and we can read together. I would think that's super fun. I would love to have a book club and to be able to talk with other people about the books I'm reading. And yeah, so thank you so much for being here. I would love if you guys subscribed. I do post not just book videos, I post cozy content, so baking, books, and other cozy things. And so I made a Colmar video where I went to Colmar and just kind of showed the scenery there. I did a name day like Morgan Long, where I did activities that start with each of the letters of my name. So as you can see, it's just cozy content all over the place, but I do love talking about books because I read a lot. And so if you do like that kind of stuff, I would love if you subscribed so we can be friends and hang out and talk more. And make sure you like this video if you liked it. And if you didn't, I'm so sorry. But you've made it this far, so good job. And I wish you guys all a super lovely day, a wonderful, wonderful summer. I know it's hot, but you got this. We're almost there. We're almost to fall. I'm a fall girly, and I'm dreaming of it. I even made little ghosty bookmarks because I'm thinking of fall so much. And I've lit my fall candle a couple times too. So thank you so much for being here, and I'm so looking forward to seeing you guys next time in my next video. Until then, ciao!